timeline, economic concerns, and the idea that, if you push all of these cigarettes off of the market, it's going to open up a serious windfall for the cartels who are already producing black market nicotine products, Chinese counterfeiters, even Russian organized crime. So again, this seems to be sort of an attempt by President Biden to define his legacy, but it's coming up a little bit too late in the process.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by White House reporter Christian Daytok. So President Biden, in one of his final acts, has made a move against cigarettes. What is he smoking at this point?
Well, Jim, this is the second time President Biden has tried to tackle big tobacco since entering the White House. Of course, his push to ban menthol cigarettes failed back in 2023, but this time around, they're advancing a new rule that would regulate nicotine levels in cigarettes and would effectively ban everything that's out there on the market right now. On its face, not a bad idea. People probably should be smoking less, but smoking rates are at an all-time low right now, and opponents of this move say there's going to be serious negative downstream impacts, both from a crime standpoint and from an economic standpoint. And it will ultimately fall on the Trump administration to implement this rule based on where we are in the final days of Biden's term in office.
And of course, there hasn't been a lot of debate and discussion of this. So this hasn't been, wasn't a major topic in the campaign even before Biden dropped out. So that might have people a little worked up.
Yeah, certainly. I think the rush timeline that they're pursuing this regulation is certainly one of the reasons experts are concerned, because there hasn't been adequate time to study this. The administration has also failed to bring in those experts to have conversations. Just for reference, the menthol push, which took basically 3 years to be finalized, they met with stakeholders over 100 times, the FDA did. With this latest push, there have been less than 10 meetings. So again, timeline, economic concerns, and the idea that, if you push all of these cigarettes off of the market, it's going to open up a serious windfall for the cartels who are already producing black market nicotine products, Chinese counterfeiters, even Russian organized crime. So again, this seems to be sort of an attempt by President Biden to define his legacy, but it's coming up a little bit too late in the process, and it's something that I think ultimately the idea that we haven't studied the downstream effects will come back and bite America in the behind.
So one area where Biden has worked with Congress in the waning days of his administration is on Social Security. What did he sign into law, and are people concerned about whether this will be bad for the solvency of the program?
Well, the legislation you reference is the Social Security Fairness Act, and there are people who are split on this issue because, again, we know the problems financially that the Social Security program is in. It's projected to run out of funding around 2033, I believe, is this date. And while this new law would extend benefits to roughly 2 million Americans, it will also speed up that timeline by about 6 months if all the numbers stay the same. Of course, that window could expand given how populations grow and more people will retire over the next decade. It's an interesting idea because, again, this was a bill that was originally put forward by Garrett Graves, a Republican congressman from Louisiana, and it's legislation that Donald Trump himself has come out and backed despite his concerns about the budget. Now, again, this will fall on Trump to implement, and it will probably mean the Social Security Administration will need to seriously staff up to deal with these millions of new checks that need to be cut and benefits that need to be adjusted based on the new law.
So Biden is getting ready to leave office as president. What are some of the things we've seen in his sort of farewell tour publicly?
Well, there was a big conservation push that the president has been embarked on over the last few months. He was in California earlier this week to announce 2 new national monuments. It would have given him the all-time record for total land and water that has been conserved by a single president. Now, of course, that was essentially postponed, delayed, whatever you want to call it, because of the wildfires in California. That disaster has also canceled the president's final foreign trip of his term in office. He was slated to travel to Italy, where he would meet with the Pope at the Vatican. Of course, Biden is a devout Catholic, and that could have been viewed as one of his personal highlights of the last 4 years in office. That trip is totally canceled now. So when we look forward to the next 2 weeks before Trump is inaugurated, there is very little left that's actually on the schedule for Biden in terms of building up his own legacy. There's all the work that they have to do with the transition, and then of course he's got to figure out just the logistics of uprooting his life again and moving back to Delaware,
Sure.
even though he's been there, hundreds of times over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be the toughest transition for him, but thank you, Christian. You can read Christian and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.